Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the January 9th, 2025 meeting of the Cambridge Board of Zoning Appeals. My name is Jim Monteverdi and I am the chair. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 adopted by the Massachusetts General Court and approved by the governor, the city is authorized to use remote participation at the meetings of the Cambridge Board of Zoning Appeals. This meeting is being video and audio recorded and is broadcast on cable television channel 22 within Cambridge. There will also be a transcript of the proceedings. All board members, applicants, and members of the public will state their name before speaking. All votes will be taken by roll call. Members of the public will be kept on mute until it is time for public comment. I will give instructions for public comment at that time, and you can also find instructions on the city's webpage for remote BZA meetings. Generally, you will have up to 3 minutes to speak. I'll start by asking staff to take board member attendance and verify that all members are audible.
Virginia Kiesler.
Virginia Kiesler, present.
Stephen Ing.
Stephen Ing, present.
Daniel Hidalgo.
Daniel Hidalgo, present.
Thomas Miller.
Thomas Miller, present.
And Jim Monteverdi is present. Thank you. All right, gang's all here. First order of business is to do elections for a new chair and vice chair. So, and participating in that discussion are members. So, Tom, you sit this one out, and it'll be myself, Stephen, Virginia, and Daniel for the discussion, nomination, voting, etc. So for
Sorry, I don't know if it's my time to speak, but I just wanted to nominate Jim Monteverdi for chair.
Yep. Who's speaking?
Sorry, this is Daniel Hidalgo. I just wanted to nominate
Great.
Jim Monteverdi for chair.
All right. Thank you. Anyone wish to second that?
I'll second that. Stephen will second that.
We have a second. All right. Let's take a vote. Stephen Ing.
Stephen Ing in favor.
Daniel.
Daniel Hidalgo in favor.
Thank you. Virginia.
Virginia Kiesler, in favor.
And Jim Monteverdi, I'll vote for myself. I am flattered. Thank you all. Now, vice chair. I will nominate Stephen Ing.
Seconded.
We have second. Take a vote. Stephen.
Stephen Ing in favor.
Thank you. Daniel.
Daniel Hidalgo in favor.
Virginia.
Virginia Kiesler, in favor.
And Jim Monteverdi in favor. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
So the slate remains the same. Just so you all know, board members, that my term expires at the end of February 2026. So what I think would be wise is this year, after we return from our summer break, we don't have any cases in August, we'll be back in September, that I think between Stephen and I will start to share some responsibilities up here, talking through all the cases, just so someone else is, and Stephen is up to speed on how to, and feels comfortable about running the meeting. So by the time it comes next January and next February when I'm gone, we're at least prepped that someone's familiar with the process. So just to let the board know and make sure there are no objections among members of the board in doing something like that. We'll discuss this again back in sometime in July. That said, the first cases are all continued cases that were previously started and not resolved. First case is BZA 281576 for 723-721 Cambridge Street. And we have a letter from the proponent, which I'll read from Manny Barros, dated December 30th, 2024. It says, please remove my petition for hotel at 723-731 Cambridge Street. There are issues to resolve with this property given the opposition. Therefore, I will withdraw the plan to build a hotel at this time. I want to thank you and the Board of Zoning Appeal for your consideration on this proposal. And signed, Manny Barros. Since this was a continued case, we need to vote to accept the withdrawal. And those are the members that sat on this back in October 10th, 2024. And that was Daniel, Virginia, Stephen, and myself. So, for the four of us to vote, I'll make a motion to withdraw this case and calling for a voice vote. Daniel?
Daniel Hidalgo in favor.
Thank you. Virginia?
Virginia Kiesler in favor.
Thank you. Stephen?
Stephen Ing in favor.
And Jim Monteverde in favor. As four in favor, the case is withdrawn. Thank you. I'm going to sign this. I don't think so. Next case is BZA 285359, 100 Otis Street, Unit Number 1. Is there anyone on the line calling in who wishes to speak about this case?
Hello, you hear me? Hello.
Yes. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, okay. My name is Michael McKee, and along with my wife Janet, we're the petitioners in this case.
Yep, thank you. Before you begin, let me interrupt you. We have correspondence in the file from Janet and Michael McKee. They're the proponents. And last time there was, and the reason this was continued, there was an objection from their fellow condominium owner. Apparently there were two owners in the condominium. And we asked them to come back, work out their differences and come back. We have a letter from Janet and Michael McKee dated January 8th, stating that, I'll summarize, that they haven't resolved the issues with their fellow condo association member. They don't have a letter and we do not have a letter in the file from the condominium association accepting or taking no exception or approving this modification. And they ask, and I'll quote, while we are prepared to discuss the condo issue at our hearing, if necessary, we think that it is more appropriate that the discussions with the BZA board be focused on the zoning and community-based issues at hand. Respectfully, I have to disagree. Again, I'll restate. I think that the reason we recommended you continue previously was because you did not have a letter from the association approving your plans, and you still don't have that. So I don't see why we'd want to go further into this discussion until you have that paperwork or have resolved that between you and the other member of your condo association.
Well, I think I can try my best to explain what the reasons why we are where we are. We spent 6 months in discussions with our neighbor last year, beginning of spring of last year, and what started out to be a very amicable discussions ended up taking a turn for the worse, and and that was through no lack of effort on our part. We made lots of compromises, or suggested quite a few compromises to try to allay their concerns, but ultimately their concern ended up being particularly an anti-renter bias. They feel that if renters are allowed in the building, that it would be negatively impact their property value. So that's why we originally asked for the continuation in October, after our meeting in October, because that was something that we were informed of just literally just before the meeting. And the way the we not able to actually vote on this because the way the condominium documents are written, we're not allowed to propose anything. We're not allowed to do anything unless it complies with zoning. And so we have a little bit of a chicken and the egg thing happening here. We had originally agreed last summer with our co-owners that they would write a letter of support for us to get us to the hearing, because we really can't have a reasonable discussion and we can't really propose to amend the condo documents as they would need to be amended unless it's approved, unless it's allowed, proposing is allowed zoning. So what they ultimately went back on their commitment to help us to get through zoning so that we could have this discussion amongst the trustees of the condominium. But ultimately they changed their mind there and left us kind of short on that. It's
Okay.
our understanding that zoning is zoning, and this is a private. And I don't know, Bruce, if you're on the line, if you can speak to this. Our attorney was registered. I can't see who is actually online and who
That's okay.
isn't.
Since this is new territory for me, and let me just defer to staff for a second. If you dealt with something like this?
Yeah.
Michael, can you give us a couple of moments here? We're going to reach out to our zoning expert and see if we can actually hear this or what action we have to take. Can you bear with us for
Okay.
a couple of moments?
That's fine. And if I can just say one more thing, what clearly in our presentation, the point we were going to make is that if we can get approval, we do understand that we need to reconcile and resolve everything. But there, in our condominium documents, there is a process outlined for resolving disagreements. And so we're just trying to get to that point where we can have the discussion, have the vote, have the disagreement, and then start the process to reconcile it. So, okay, I will hang on.
Let's just hang on for a couple of moments and we'll be right back.
Okay, thank you.
Members, we're just going to go on hold here for a bit. All right, that was quick. We're back. Michael, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
So we've consulted with the ISD staff and our zoning expert, and we cannot process your application until you have the approval of the condominium association. So with that, the only choice I see for you is to continue this again. You pick a date. And if by that date you haven't resolved it, you may want to either continue again or withdraw. I'll leave that up to you. But I
Is
can't
it
go
possible
forward.
for me? Can I ask Bruce if he's online? If he
No,
can
thank you.
weigh
We don't
in?
want to go any further into the merits.
Okay.
Jim, this is Thomas Miller. Just for the record, what is the basis for our lack of
Thomas,
ability-
hold on a second. Thomas, hold on 1 second. You're not, give me 1 second. Do we have the old file? Give me 1 second, Thomas, before I take your question. Oh, here we go. Hold on 1 second. No, it wasn't. So, Thomas, since this is a continued case, we can only have the people who were set on it initially.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't understand.
That's okay.
There had been a.
So
earlier.
I can't open it up to you, and we'll mute you for a moment until we end this one. So it was Virginia, myself. That's it. Okay. Sorry for all the timeouts. This is a unique one, at least in my
Yeah.
time here on the board. So, yes, beside the fact that it can only be the members who sat on the case, and originally, I'm informed by staff that Mr. McKee, what you also need to do is you need to revise the form, it's called a BZA application form, ownership information, and that needs to come from the condominium association, not from you personally. So once you get all this together, get together with your association, get their acceptance. The typical format is the association provides the board with the zoning board with a letter stating their approval of the plans, and also that the ownership form is revised to come from the condominium association. So, we can't hear this tonight.
Okay. Okay.
So, would you like to continue this again,
Yes.
one more time? How much time would you like?
I mean, it's probably as much as there's quite a bit.
Well, February, March, April, May, June, July, that's as far as the list in front of me I have.
Yeah. Can we go late March?
Yeah, we have,
Make it
we have March 27th.
okay.
We have March 27th, we have April 10th, May 8th. Your choice.
And I mean, I'd like to try to push it if possible. So if we aim for the 27th, if it ends up taking more time, will we be allowed to perhaps extend it again, or before the meeting even happens, reschedule it?
You know, I think, understanding the complications on this one, we'll let you do this one more time. Our typical policy is you do it twice, and that's it.
Right.
But we'll certainly let you do it one more time if you need it.
Okay, that gives us 2.5 months. So we'll aim for that.
So you do March 27th?
Yes.
Okay. And
Actually, I'm sorry. Can we just do April? I just hate to be
Sure.
short.
April
And
10th?
another- April 10th. Okay.
Mr. Chairperson?
Very good. All right, let me propose a motion to make a motion to continue this matter until April 10th, 2025, on the condition that the petitioner change the posting sign to reflect the date of April 10th, 2025, and the new time of 6 p.m. Also, that the petitioner sign a waiver to the statutory requirements for the hearing. This waiver can be obtained from Maria Pacheco or Olivia Rattay at the Inspectional Services Department. I ask that you sign the waiver and return it to the Inspectional Services Department by a week from this coming Monday. Failure to do so will de facto cause this board to give an adverse ruling on this case. Also, that if there are any new submittals, changes to the drawings, dimensional forms, or any supporting statement, that those be in the file by 5 p.m. on the Monday prior to the continued meeting date. On the motion to continue this matter until April 10th, 2025, Stephen,
Stephen Ing in favor.
Daniel,
Daniel Hidalgo in favor.
Virginia,
Virginia Kiesler in favor.
and Jim Monteverdi in favor. That's 4 in favor. The continuance is granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
luck.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have to wait for 5 minutes. Take a break. Get your popcorn ready for the Penn State football game. All right, 6:30, we're back. And now we can go to the regular agenda. And this is our full group tonight: Virginia, Stephen, Daniel, Thomas, and myself. So the first case I'm going to call is BZA 1144543 for 1 Brattle Square. Mr. Bryn, are you calling in? Or anyone else calling in as a proponent for 1 Brattle Square? This is a Telcon commission, a special permit. Let's give him a minute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. My name is Keenan Brin. I'm on behalf of Network Building and Consulting. We're located in Woburn, Mass, representing the applicant, Dish Wireless LLC. I'm also joined, I believe, by Elijah Lutu, who's the RF engineer that designed the site. Just give you a quick background on the site. This building, as you probably know, is in the proximity of Harvard Square. Dish is proposing to put 2 canister concealment
Got this one?
and concealment. I guess they'd be, kind of. In other words, they would be able to camouflage the antennas under these canisters. The canisters measure about 10 foot tall, and they're 36 inches in diameter. One will contain an antenna and 2 radios. The other one will contain 2 antennas and 2 radios. The equipment shelter will be invisible from the roof. We're talking about an equipment shelter like 10 by 15 on the first floor. The cabling will extend up to the roof and run along the roof to the 2 canisters. At that point, there will not be any other visible equipment on the roof. The other thing I'd like to mention too is that we've been in front of the Harvard Square Advisory Committee, and we got a positive recommendation from them. We did go to the planning board, and they were more neutral on that, but we were in front of them on Tuesday night, and I know they sent you a recommendation. I don't have a lot more to add, but I know Elijah is very familiar with the roof and how it was designed. And if you had any questions about the layout, I would encourage you to ask him.
Before we get into anything else in your presentation, is this a replacement of equipment, or is this new equipment?
This is a new installation. There are other carriers up on that roof already, but this is
Okay. So it's
first
all
of
new.
its kind for Dish. This is not a replacement. It's not a modification. This is the first for Dish going up there.
Okay. Can we go to the photo simulations? Just walk us through those.
Yeah, sure. So the first picture you saw, if you go back, it shows the existing. One more. Go to that second slide. Keep going forward. No. One more after this. Okay, what you're seeing there is the existing conditions of the building itself. And then when you go to the following slide, that'll show you where the canister is relative to that. And there's a I don't know how well you can see it. There's a red arrow. And that's that canister I was talking about. That would be one of the 2 canisters that are on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you go to the next slide, you'll see the existing conditions, and that's the existing condition right there. And then that's what it looks like today. And then you go to the next slide, it's proposed. This will be the second canister right there. And again, this is just one view, but it's basically gives you an idea of
Yep.
what this is going to look like. And again, this is someone's opinion of what it's going to look like, but I think it's pretty accurate from 6 stories down. I don't think this canister is going to protrude up as much as you might think, although 10 feet may sound like a lot to you, but Elijah, if he's on, can certainly added more information about the actual telecommunications and the radio frequency of why we have to have a 10-foot canister. I know the staff memo, was wondering if they could lower it, but I mean, I think this is pretty evident that I don't think it's going to be terribly obtrusive.
Thank you. Anything else to present to us, or is that?
I think that's about it. But
Substance.
if Elijah is on, I know he asked me about I don't know if he's got his hand up or not, but like
Well,
you said,
let me get to the correspondence, and then I'll give you the chance to, or Elijah, to give
please.
us your thoughts, to share your thoughts. So thank you for the presentation. Any questions from members of the board? If not, we do have 3 pieces of correspondence in the file. First, as the proponent mentioned, we have a letter from the Harvard Square Advisory Committee dated December 18th, 2024. Its recommendation reads, members of the committee were supportive of the applicant's proposal, noting the positive impact of concealing the antenna in a cylindrical structure. The committee had no additional comments on the design or layout. Then we have the planning board dated January 8th, 2025, that reads in part, the board, this is the planning board, did not make any recommendation, but decided to forward the attached memo from the Community Development Department staff memo to BZA. Now we get to the meat. We have the memo dated January 3rd, 2025, addressed to the planning board. This is from the Community Development Department. And in part, it reads, and I'll quote here, staff recommends further study of alternative design options to determine if a less visually obtrusive layout is feasible. Examples might include, 1, co-locating the dish antennas with other existing antennas on the penthouse facade, or 2, lowering the height of chimneys and moving them to a less obtrusive location. Did you want to ask Elijah to introduce himself and tell us, respond to that if you're aware of it?
Yeah, if he's got his hand up, or I believe he's spread. There he is. Okay, Elijah, take it away, just like we did the other night.
Yeah, just introduce yourself, please, Elijah.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Elijah Lutu. I'm a dish wireless engineer responsible for this area.
Yep.
And I've been, I have about a little over 28 years of experience in RF, but I've been working for Dish for the last 2 years.
Yep.
For this installation, we did look at several different designs, but we have some limitations. And one of them being that one of the existing carriers there is T-Mobile. And with T-Mobile, we, on the lower band, which is the 600 megahertz, we do share the same band, and we cannot be collocated next to them. We need to have at least 40 feet horizontal separation from their facility or from their antennas, so that we don't cause interference to them or interference to us.
Okay.
The spectrum they're using is adjacent to our spectrum from what FCC allocated us. So that's one of the reasons why we couldn't really do the like collocating on the same.
Yep. Okay.
Like,
So I think you've addressed the co-locating. Doesn't seem to be an option. Can you talk about is it possible to lower the height of the chimneys?
Well, yeah. Well, we did look at that. The chimneys actually, they are 10 feet tall, but the antennas we're using are 6 feet tall. The reason we had to raise it 10 feet tall is because of the roof line itself. If we continue pushing it back, the roof line of the penthouse will be blocking the signal. So for us to be able to clear that, that's why we have to raise it about 10 feet, putting into consideration that the setbacks we need from the roof line. That's
Right,
what
so
limiting
I'm
us
looking at,
from going.
I'm looking at your drawing Z3. That looks like a section through the chimney, and it appears that it's the chimney itself is not physically 10 feet tall, but it measures 10 feet off of the roof line because it sits on a pad, sits on a footing.
Yes.
There you go, right there.
Yeah.
It's on the left-hand
Yeah.
side, right?
Yeah.
So, it looks
so
like
we-
it appears to be, the height seems to be determined by the placement of those, I guess, the 4 dishes that are, or 4 antenna that are shown there.
Well, that height it's also determined by that setback of the 10 feet we need to be from the roof line. So because of that setting back the antennas, in order for us to clear that, we have to raise the actual antenna. That's why you see, if you look
Okay,
on the
right.
antennas, yeah, on the top, yeah.
So the cure is,
Further with,
the cure is worse than the disease.
you can say that, yeah.
Or something like that. It's basically in order
Yeah.
to make it, yeah, you can't, yeah, it's not going to get shorter. Okay, so I think that,
Exactly.
thank you for your comments. I think that explains for the board why there isn't the opportunity to co-locate with other antennas, and then why with the equipment that you propose and that illustration of the chimney that can't lower the height. And the last comment there was to move them to a less obtrusive location. And is that possible?
What do you mean by less obtrusive? In other words, where you
Well,
cannot see them?
I think it's the one, I suspect it's the one, at least to my eye, it's the one photo simulation where the
Yes.
chimney is most apparent.
Oh, where it sticks out a little bit.
That one.
This one here?
Yeah. And is it
Yeah,
possible to modify that for location on the roof to push it back so it's not as visible from the street?
If we do that, then part of that signal will be blocked by the roof line. That's what I was.
So that's the discussion we just had, that if you move, the same thing, if you have to move it back, then you have to make it higher.
Then you have to make it.
Okay, so it really doesn't, there's not a solution there.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your expertise there. With that, I will open it up to public comment. We have no letters in the file, except for the ones I read. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the icon at the bottom of the Zoom screen that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. I'll now ask staff to unmute speakers one at a time. You should begin by saying your name and address, and staff will confirm that we can hear you. After that, you will have up to 3 minutes to speak before I ask you to wrap up. Anyone out there? No one's calling in, so we will close public testimony. Any discussion among members of the board before I make the required speech? If not, let me, before we go into a motion, let me play this recording of our required discussion. Bear with me, it's about 5 minutes long. Based on the findings, the chair moves that the petitioner be granted the special permit it is seeking, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the work proceed in accordance with the plan submitted by the petitioner and initialed by the chair. 2, that upon completion of the work, the physical appearance and visual impact of the proposed work will be consistent with the photo simulation submitted by the petitioner and initialed by the chair. 3, that the petitioner shall at all times maintain the proposed work so that its physical appearance and visual impact will remain consistent with the photo simulations previously referred to. 4, that should the petitioner cease to utilize the equipment approved tonight for a continuous period of 6 months or more, it shall promptly thereafter remove such equipment and restore the building on which it is located to its prior condition and appearance to the exact reasonably practicable. 5, that the petitioner is in compliance with and will continue to comply with all respects the conditions imposed by this board with regard to previous special permits granted to the petitioner with regard to the site in question. Inasmuch as the health effects of the transmission of electromagnetic energy waves is a matter of ongoing societal concern and scientific study, the special permit is also subject to the following conditions. A, that the petitioner shall file with the Inspectional Services Department each report it files with the federal authorities regarding electromagnetic energy wave emissions emanating from all the petitioner's equipment on the site. Each such report shall be filed with the Inspectional Services Department no later than 10 business days after the report has been filed with the federal authorities. Failure to timely file any such report with the Inspectional Services Department shall ipso facto terminate the special permit granted tonight. B, that in the event that at any time federal authorities notify the petitioner that its equipment on the site, including but not limited to the special permit granted tonight, fails to comply with the requirements of law or governmental regulations, whether with regard to the emissions of electromagnetic energy waves or otherwise, the petitioner within 10 business days of receipt of such notification of such failure shall file with the Inspectional Services Department a report disclosing in reasonable detail that such failure has occurred and the basis for such claimed failure. The special permit granted tonight shall ipso facto terminate if any of the petitioner's federal licenses is or are suspended, revoked, or terminated. C, that to the extent that a special permit has terminated pursuant to the foregoing paragraphs A and B, the petitioner may apply to this board for a new special permit, provided that the public notice concerning such application discloses in reasonable detail that the application has been filed because of a termination of the special permit pursuant to paragraphs A and B above. Any such new application shall not be deemed a repetitive petition and therefore would not be subject to the 2-year period during which repetitive petitions may not be filed. And finally, D, that within 10 business days after receipt of a building permit for the installation of the equipment subject to this petition, the petitioner shall file with the Inspectional Services Department a sworn affidavit of the person in charge of the installation of equipment by the petitioner with a geographical area that includes Cambridge, stating that A, he or she has such responsibility, and B, that the equipment being installed pursuant to the special permit we are granting tonight will comply with all federal safety rules and will be situated and maintained in locations with appropriate barricades and other protections such that individuals, including nearby residents and occupants of nearby structures, will be sufficiently protected from excessive radio frequency radiation under federal law. The end. All right. So on the motion to grant the special permit requested, on a voice vote, please. Virginia?
Virginia Kiesler in favor.
Thank you. Stephen?
Stephen Ing in favor.
Thank you. Daniel?
Daniel Hidalgo in favor.
Thomas?
Thomas Miller in favor.
Thank you. And Jim Monteverde in favor. That's 5 in favor. The relief is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. You all set?
Yep.
All right. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next case is BZA 1143353, 190 Lexington Avenue. Is there anyone calling in?
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yep. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hi, my name is Ross Kenyon. I'm the petitioner and the owner at 190 Lexington Ave.
Okay.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here tonight. My name is Ross Kenyon, and with me is my wife, Anu Krishnan. We're the owners. We're also the design professionals for the project. So we've been looking for a house in Cambridge for some time. We really fell in love with the city and the people. We knew that we wanted to make a home for ourselves here. We purchased the property at 190 Lexington Ave in July of 2024. We received a building permit for a level 3 alteration, a full gut renovation plus finishing the basement, so we could get started with the interior demo work and the foundation work. In terms of our needs, we had a lot of requirements for the design. We've got family members that will be spending a lot of time with us, including elderly parents, plus siblings and kids. Anu and I also do a lot of work from home. So that's what brings us before you here tonight. We faced a lot of challenges to fit all the elements we needed. We were also constrained by the need to make provisions for an elevator so we can be sure to accommodate our parents and maybe even our future selves. So we're looking for a little bit of relief to make the house what we really need. One thing I wanted to clarify in the drawings that were submitted, I know Stephen let me know that there was a question from the public. So the photos of the site reflect the condition just prior to the start of construction. What I've labeled as existing conditions in the drawings reflect the alterations that were approved by the building department, and I've annotated things as such. We did meet back in November in person with all 3 households that directly abut our property. We talked with them about the changes that we're making as part of the issued permit and also the relief that we're requesting here tonight with the special permit. They were all very friendly and supportive. In fact, every one of them invited us into their house to tour so we could see how our property is visible from theirs. They didn't have any objections to our plans, but based on what we saw, we actually reconfigured a few windows just to provide a little more privacy for all parties. They were all really nice people, and we couldn't be more excited to move in and be part of this community. So I'll pause here. I can continue and briefly outline each element of our request along with the rationale for those elements, or I'm happy to take questions from the board and we can make it more of a dialogue.
If you can walk us through what you are actually seeking relief for.
Perfect.
And I think the advertisement says extending pre-existing height, gross floor area nonconformity, so it's already a nonconforming structure.
Yes.
And then you have roof deck within setbacks.
Yep.
And I think there are a couple other things. You've got some construction, I'm assuming, in side yard and front yard setbacks. If you could just walk us through what those are so we know what you're asking relief for.
Perfect. Olivia, or who's driving the presentation, if you could actually skip down to slide 23. It's actually in my updated set that I'd like to shoot from. Yes, perfect. Okay, so item number 1 is the window well. That's on the south side of the property. That'll facilitate a bedroom in that location in the basement, and it increases the height nonconformity. We're taking it from 37.6 feet to 37.7 feet. Of course, we're not changing the roof ridge elevation. This is based on the depth of the window well.
Yep.
Item number 2 is a dormer on the east side of the house on the 3rd floor. So in both the current physical configuration of the house and in the approved design, there's a triangular shaped dormer on the east side there on the 3rd floor. We needed more headroom.
All right, let me, east side, so the dimensional form basically talks about left side, right side. So which side is east?
The Lexington Ave side.
Left or right? Looking,
right.
facing the property head on, is it left or right?
No, I'm sorry. It's head on. It faces Lexington Ave.
Is it right? I think it's right. Looking at your diagram, it looks like your right side setback, looking at everything from Lexington Avenue, you're within your setback lines. Is that not correct?
Okay, so the right side of the drawing where it faces Lexington Ave, yes?
All right, sorry, I interrupted you. You're on a roll. Keep going.
Oh, okay. Back to my spiel here. Okay. So the east dormer, we needed more headroom for the bedroom on that side. We also wanted the dormer on that side to match what we had designed for the west side. So we're proposing a gable design with vertical walls, and this adds 10 square feet of GFA. Item number 3 is the west dormer. So in the approved design, we added a dormer on the west side of the 3rd floor, but for the special permit, we'd like to extend the west wall of that dormer 5 feet further to the west so that it aligns with the eave of the main roof. Really, the rationale there was we needed to add headroom to the 3rd floor bathroom, which currently feels very cramped, and we also wanted to add a little extra headroom to the bedroom, which is still fairly compact. So that adds 66 square feet of GFA. Item 4 is the bays. So the house currently has these angled bays on the east and north elevations. The bays run up from the 1st floor up through the 2nd floor and project about 3 feet from the adjacent walls. We wanted to reconfigure these and square them off, both to create more functionality for the interior spaces and also to fit with our aesthetic taste. So the combined addition of all the bays, meaning both locations and both floors, amounts to 34 square feet. And I think you were pointing this out on the right side of the drawing, which is the east side of the property. That bay is, yes, inside the setback. Item 5 are the patio steps and landing. So there's currently a brick paved area in the northwest corner of the house, but it really doesn't connect well with the interior spaces. So we wanted to add a patio that opens out from the dining area, and we wanted to extend that to be flush with the extent of the adjacent bay. And based on the elevation of the 1st floor, we needed to add several steps and a landing as well. So this takes up a little open space from the northwest corner of the property. However, we have a balcony on the 2nd floor, and we're also proposing some roof decks, which offset the decrease in open space. So there is a reduction in private open space, but there's actually a net increase in total open space. And then the last item are the roof decks. We wanted to add roof decks on both the east and west sides on the 3rd floor to connect with the bedrooms that are on each side of the house. But since the house itself was built within the setbacks, likely before the ordinance was enacted, some portion of those roof decks falls within the setback, so we're asking for relief there. So those are all the elements of our request.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the board? If not, I will open it up to public comment. We have 2 letters in the file. One from Brian Coughlin at 203 Lexington Avenue, who states having no objection to these requests, to the plans. And then a second from Susan Lapides and Peter Wilson at 451 Huron Avenue, stating they have no objections to the plans and are pleased that they will be their new neighbors. That's everything we have in the file. Any member of the public who wish to speak should now click the icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. I'll now ask staff to unmute speakers one at a time. You should begin by saying your name and address, and staff will confirm that we can hear you. After that, you will have up to 3 minutes to speak before I ask you to wrap up. Anyone out there?
Diane Norris,
Hello, my name is Diane Norris. I'm your new neighbor across the street, and I just want to say I am very impressed how the level of detail from your previous plan to the latest renovations. Just looking at them carefully, it does justify the need to change the bays, and it just seems like your house is working much better, and a whole nother level of detail. And so I just really appreciate that because every inch counts with these houses. And I really appreciate the fact that you're not doing a tear down because that is happening a lot in our neighborhood. And so just making the point of making the most of what you have here. And it looks like it's going to be great. I do have a couple of quick questions. On the basement, how come the basement isn't included in the floor area? That it's exempt? And so that's the first question. The second, with the elevator, I was just curious what your plans are for the exterior access ramp to get to the elevator. Would it be from the driveway, or I know this is ahead of the game, but I was just curious. So thank you so much. All right.
Thank you for calling in.
Jim, can I can answer that question?
One second, please.
Okay.
You were going to say?
Oh, yeah. So thanks, Diane. Nice to meet you and excited to be your neighbor as well. Yeah, the basement exemption, that's just based on the Cambridge zoning ordinance. Currently, below grade areas are exempt from GFA. And you asked about an exterior access ramp for the elevator. We don't have an exterior access ramp planned as of yet. Even our elderly parents, they're okay, for example, getting into the house, but moving up and down, for example, going from a bedroom down to main room to eat, back and forth and so on. That's where they have trouble.
Okay. Ross, I think the city's ordinance that the basement is exempt from the area calculation is as long as that is not in a floodplain.
Correct, and we are not.
You've had that determination made?
Yep. That's been made by the Department of Public Works for our approved building permit.
That's all we needed. Thank you. Is there anybody else calling in? Seems not, so I will close public testimony. Any discussion among members of the board? If not, I will move to a motion. Chairman, this is a special permit. So just for reference, if I go to the dimensional form, as I think I said before, the building as it stands, the existing building is already non-conforming. So it's non-conforming in terms of area, GFA, setback, and I think some of the requests for the special permit are kind of come from that. So you're making some additions there. So Chair makes a motion to grant relief from the requirements of the ordinance under sections 5.31. And this is for increasing the square footage beyond the ordinance allowance, increasing the gross square footage, again, which is already non-conforming. The construction proposed within the front yard setback and also on the, as I read it from the drawings, the left side setback, which are the ones toward, I think, hold on a second. I think you were saying that was the south. Any of those windows being relocated or any of that construction on that side would be in that side yard setback. So that's section 5.31. Section 8.22.2.d for an enlargement of a pre-existing non-conforming structure, and 10.40 for a special permit. And I will read that criteria under section 10.43. It appears that requirements of this ordinance cannot or will not be met. That is correct. B, traffic generated or patterns of access or egress would cause congestion, hazard, or substantial change. That's a no. C, the continued operation of or the development of adjacent uses as permitted in the ordinance would be adversely affected. It will not. D, nuisance or hazard would be created to the detriment of the health, safety, or welfare of the occupant. It will not. And E, for other reasons, the proposed use would impair the integrity of the district or adjoining district, and it will not. So it conforms to all of the criteria mentioned in section 10.43 for a special permit, on the condition that the work proposed conform to the drawings entitled 190 Lexington Avenue, prepared by no name on the drawings.
My name should be there, Ross, RHK, Ross Kenyon.
Drawn by, yeah. It's, we'll use that. All right, prepared by RHK, Ross Kenyon, and dated January 2nd, 2025. Initialed and dated by the chair, and further that we incorporate the supporting statements and dimensional forms submitted as part of the application. Board members, on a voice vote, please. Virginia?
Virginia Kiesler in favor.
Thank you. Stephen?
Stephen Ing in favor.
Thank you. Daniel?
Daniel Hidalgo in favor.
Thank you. Thomas?
Thomas Miller in favor.
Thank you. And Jim Monteverde in favor. It's 5 in favor. The relief is granted. Good luck.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks to the board.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Welcome. Next case is BZA 1143317, 102 Sciarapa Street. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Sharapa? All right, I'll take Sharapa. Anyone calling in to speak about this case? This is a special permit also.
Hi, yes, this is Carolyn Park. I'm the homeowner. I'm here.
Great, good evening.
Good evening.
Could
Go ahead.
just go explain to us why you're back. We've heard this case
Hi.
before, and what's different, and why you're back tonight, and what relief you're seeking.
Yeah, just to remind you of who I am, I'm Carolyn Park. My husband is Ray. He's putting the kids to bed right now, so he can't join me. I lived in Cambridge for 19 years. My children go to Tobin. We did receive a special permit in the past, and we began construction. We moved into temporary housing. We got our special permit in at the end of 23. Our first time was in earlier in 23, in March of 23. We moved into temporary housing in January of 2025. So we've been in temp housing for a year now. And our kids are living in one bedroom, and we're all sharing a current bedroom. We hired a contractor named Dream House, and we paid a large percentage of the project prior to even commencing the work. The contractor began by demolishing all the floors in the house without our consent, demolishing more than was allowed under renovation, which is why we're here today. He improperly excavated around the entire perimeter and did not reinforce the foundation walls during underpinning, causing 2 out of the 4 foundation walls to cave in June of 2024. We then paid to rebuild the walls, but visual inspection showed that the concrete had cracks in it because the contractor had hand mixed all the concrete. We then performed concrete testing on the foundation walls and found that they did not meet specifications, and neither did the footings. So then we paid for a foundation that was not structurally sound. So now we don't have a foundation. The contractor refused to give back any money. We had to terminate the contractor, and now we need to pay more with a new contractor, as the structural engineer says the foundation should be redone. So that's sort of what has happened in the time that we've begun our project, and why we're back in some context. Steve, my architect, can run through some of the minor changes that have occurred since we last saw you Do you have any questions regarding what I just said?
Nope. Sorry for your misfortune. It's definitely a terrible experience. I doubt if you'll want to renovate a house again, but that's unfortunate. Yes, if you said your architect is there and they can talk to us about what changes, if any, have been made in the plan or elevations, that would be helpful.
Yes, Steve is on the line.
Hi, this is Steve Heisero from DH Architects.
Yep. Steve, how are you?
So Carolyn sort of went through the history. After learning all of this, we end up having to redo a lot of the foundations. The underpinning that was put in place was found to be inadequate strength. In order to get that out, these are the original walls were rubble and brick, so it's unlikely that we could get any of that out without just demolishing the whole foundation. So we're going to, or the current plan is to rebuild the entire foundation with new concrete walls.
Right. And Steve, in terms of the building plan and the building elevations, I just asked staff to bring up your sheet A201, which kind of outlines, it looks like, where openings were and openings you want. Am I correct?
Openings that are outlined in red were original openings from the original house. Nothing. I can go through the minor changes.
So is the profile of the house exactly as it was in the previous case that was approved?
Yes, it is. The perimeter of the house, with the exception of some changes on the rear elevation and one on the right side elevation, is identical to the previous approval.
Okay.
So if we could go to, no, this is fine. The primary changes that have occurred are, since we have to remove all of the underpinning and existing foundation walls, we've decided to, since we have to do all the excavation to get that material out, we're going to increase the depth of the basement and add some habitable space and some storage space in the basement that was not planned in the earlier project. None of it is subject to special permit review, except for egress windows and an areaway door on the rear elevation. We can see it in the upper left-hand corner, all below the first floor line, those areas there. So we have a window well, an areaway, and a door and two windows that are being added to the elevation that were not in the previous scheme. And on the right side elevation, we've had to, in order to increase, to get to the increased depth of the basement floor, we had to adjust our stairs, which forced a slight relocation of the entry door about 3 feet to the right. You can see that on the right side elevation. And yes, that's the location. And that is the extent of the changes since the previous special permit was approved.
Okay.
One of the things, one of the special permits we're asking for is to demo, there's a restriction on the amount of building that can be demoed and rebuilt.
Correct.
Which is 25%. And the contractor, since he hollowed out the entire structure, there really essentially was no GFA remaining. But the other condition that we're dealing with now is with having to remove most of the foundation wall except for the front foundation wall, it is going to be very difficult to salvage any of the remaining framing on the superstructure of the building. We're going to do our best to retain what is there, but we're not confident that with all the work that needs to be done on the foundation, we'll be able to save much. So just wanted to throw that little bit of uncertainty in there.
Yep, that's okay. And I'm looking at the dimensional form, and it basically says the requested condition is there are no dwelling units. I'm assuming there's actually one. Is this a single-family residence?
No, it's a two-family.
Two-family. And what's the existing condition or previous condition?
Yeah, there's no increase in.
So it's a 2 to a 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions from members of the board?
This is Daniel Hidalgo. I just have one question. Just for the dimensional form, are the numbers they're reported, the existing conditions, are those from the sort of what the special permit grant was granted?
No, they're from the original building.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions from members of the board? If not, I'll open it up to public comment. We have, I count 5 letters in the file speaking in favor and none against. Let me summarize the ones who've written in favor. Daniele Urena at 28 Sparadakis Terrace, who's in support of the renovation plans. Marissa Liu at 277 Broadway, in support. Grant and Kai Means from 5A Lancaster Street, in support. And David and Carolyn DeSola, 336 Windsor Street, strongly support. And Brian McLaughlin from 155 Charles Street, in support as well. So those are all the correspondence we have in the file. I'll open it up to public comment for anyone calling in. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. I'll now ask staff to unmute speakers one at a time. You should begin by saying your name and address, and staff will confirm that we can hear you. After that, you will have up to 3 minutes to speak before I ask you to wrap up.
Daniel Cogswell.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Daniel Cogswell, and I live right around the corner from this building at 106 5th Street, where I own 2 condos, and I've lived for 12 years. So I'm familiar with this building, and I'm excited to see that it's in the approval process here. I've gone through the plans, and I noticed that very little from the front or from the street of the building is being changed in the amendment here. Generally, the architecture conforms with our neighborhood and is pleasing. And it seems like the changes that they are requesting here are reasonable given the uncertainty and unfortunate circumstance that happened with the foundation. So again, I would like to speak in favor of this proposal.
Thank you for calling in. And that's everyone calling in. So I will close public testimony. Any discussion from members of the board? If not, let me make a motion. This is a special permit. Again, and the reason they're really back with the special permit is they're rebuilding more than 25% of what had been an existing non-conforming structure. So, Chair makes a motion to grant relief from the requirements of the ordinance under sections 5.31, and as best I can read it, this was non-conforming in terms of its gross floor area. This will add a bit of area. This was non-conforming in terms of its GFA. That will be increased a bit. it needs relief for its every setback. Front setback, rear setback, left side, right side setbacks to allow the construction in those faces. And the building height was conforming and remains conforming, although the height increases because of the areaway. And that's everything that changes regarding, that's affected regarding the 5.31, the dimensional form. And section 8.22.2.d for non-conforming structure, and section 10.40 for a special permit. I will read that criteria. It says, A, it appears that requirements of this ordinance cannot or will not be met. That is correct. B, traffic generator or patterns of access or egress would cause congestion, hazard, or substantial change. It will not. C, continued operation of a development of adjacent uses as permitted in the ordinance would be adversely affected. It will not. D, nuisance or hazard would be created to the detriment of the health, safety, or welfare of the occupant. It will not. And E, for other reasons, the proposed use would impair the integrity of the district or adjoining district. And it will not. So it complies with all the criteria of section 10.43 for a special permit, on the condition that the work proposed conform to the drawings entitled 102-104 Scariapa Street, prepared by DH Architects, dated 10/18/24. Is that the correct date?
Yes.
Okay, 10/8/24. Initialed and dated by the chair, and further, we incorporate the supporting statements and dimensional forms submitted as part of the application. Board members, on a voice vote, please. Virginia?
Virginia Kiesler in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Ing in favor.
Thank you. Daniel?
Daniel Hidalgo in favor.
Thank you. Thomas?
Thomas Miller in favor.
Thank you. And Jim Monteverdi against. I voted against this previously. I'm just going to continue that stand. I'm sensitive to the proponent's predicament that they are in, and I'm happy that we have 4 votes so that this can go forward. So 4 in favor, 1 against. The relief is granted. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Next case is 1143415, 207 Lexington Avenue. Oh, we're back on Lexington Avenue. Anyone calling in for 207 Lexington Avenue?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yep, my name is Chris Taylor. I'm an architect, and my clients, Tom and Nisha Smolinski, are also on the Zoom. I don't know if they need to present, but they are here if needed.
Okay. Can you describe to us what it is you'd like to do and what requires zoning relief?
Yes, so 207 Lexington is a 2-family. We're creating ADU in the ground floor basement. We are seeking relief, so I believe it's 4.22 to create the ADU. We're also creating, we're changing the size of a window within a setback. And we're creating 2 window wells at the rear, which are not in setbacks, but that does change the average building height, which is already non-conforming.
Yep, okay. And which side, as in front, rear, left, or right, are you moving the windows around that are in the setback?
So, Olivia, if we can go to the second the second page with the site plan. Yeah, right there. So on the right, Lexington Ave street side is on the bottom.
Yep.
And the window wells are at the rear. The entrance is on the right side, looking from Lexington Ave, and it's out of sight. Theoretically, if no one was parked in the driveway, you might be able to see it, but it's really tucked back there. And there's no changes to the street facade of the building, except we're going to replace 2 basement windows in kind.
And which setback are those, or any window modifications that you're making in?
On the north side, which is the left side of this drawing.
Left side. Okay.
Yeah. So would you like me to walk through the drawings?
Yep, please. Again, whatever you're seeking the relief for, please.
Okay. So if we go to the next page, this is the street facade. I did this as a proposed and existing elevation because the only change is the 2 windows are getting replaced in kind.
Yep.
And next page. So this is the south driveway side, and we're removing an existing deck and door. The first floor unit already has a second means of egress, so there was no need for 3. And this is where we're excavating to create the entry, but there's no relief. Well, but we will be changing the elevation here. If you go to the next page, this shows the proposed layout with the entrance. Next page. This is the existing rear elevation, and there's 2 small basement windows. So we'll be removing those, installing window wells. Next elevation, please. This is the proposed rear elevation showing the window wells. And on the left, you can see the entrance. It's kind of tucked behind the front of the building there. Next elevation, please. So this is the north elevation. This is the one that is within the setback. And this was done as a proposed and existing because really the only change, that door is a 2.8 door, and we're going to widen it to be a 3.0 door.
Okay.
The 2 windows in the middle, those are getting replaced in kind. And the window on the left, it currently matches those other 2 windows. We're not going to put in a window well, but we're just going to make it a little taller to get more light in the bedroom.
Very good. And that's the extent of the modifications on the exterior of the building?
Yep. We did seek and were granted relief for a dormer. The special permit, it was last summer. That was, it hasn't been permitted yet, but we do have relief from the board.
Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions from members of the board? If not, we have 2 pieces of correspondence in this file in favor. Patricia Flaherty, 213 Lexington Avenue, writing in support. And Anne Marie and Michael Mahoney at 210 Lexington Avenue in support. And no one writing, speaking against. I will open it up to public comment. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and mute or unmute by pressing *6. I'll now ask staff to unmute speakers one at a time. You should begin by saying your name and address, and staff will confirm that we can hear you. After that, you will have up to 3 minutes to speak before I ask you to wrap up. Anybody calling in? Nope, nobody calling in. I'll close public testimony. Any discussion among members of the board? Or are we ready for a motion? Ready for a motion. Chair makes a motion to grant relief from the requirements of the ordinance under sections 5.31. And as best I can see, that is for the only place the existing is not in conformance is the left side setback. So I assume that's the door you're talking about, the couple of windows in terms of setback. And then the height of the building, which was non-conforming, it'll be a bit more non-conforming, and that'll be for the arithmetic with the areaways and the window wells. That's it's everything on 5.31. Right, and you go from 2 dwelling units to 3. It's 5.31. Also, section 4.22, I believe it's 0.22.1, which is about the accessory apartments. 5.22.2.c and point D on non-conforming structures, and 10.40 for a special permit. And again, I will read that criteria. It appears that requirements of this ordinance cannot or will not be met. That is correct. Traffic generated or patterns of access or egress would cause congestion, hazard, or substantial change. It will not. The continued operation of or the development of adjacent uses as permitted in the ordinance would be adversely affected. It will not. Nuisance or hazard would be created to the detriment of the health, safety, or welfare of the occupant. It will not. And for other reasons, the proposed use would impair the integrity of the district or adjoining district, and it will not. So it complies with all the criteria under section 10.43 for a special permit, on the condition that the work proposed conform to the drawing is titled 207 Lexington Avenue, prepared by CJT Architects and dated November 15th, 2024, initialed and dated by the chair, and further that we incorporate the supporting statements and dimensional forms submitted as part of the application. Board members on a voice vote, please. Virginia?
Virginia Kiesler in favor.
Thank you. Stephen?
Stephen Ing in favor.
Thank you. Daniel?
Daniel Hidalgo in favor.
Thank you. Thomas?
Thomas Miller in favor.
Thank you. And Jim Monteverdi in favor. It's 5 in favor. Relief is granted.
Thank you, Board. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Next case is BZA 1143409, 11 Perry Street. Mr. Rafferty, are you joining us this evening?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. I am indeed.
Excellent.
Happy New Year. Nice to see you all. For the record, my name is James Rafferty. I'm an attorney with offices located at 907 Massachusetts Avenue in Cambridge. I'm appearing this evening on behalf of Jeffrey and Sherry Berg, B-E-R-G, and their home at 11 Perry Street in Cambridge. There'll be nothing about this case that will change the trajectory of your work this evening. It is in the same category as some of your previous ones. It's rather straightforward and simple. This case involves a structure that was granted a variance in August of 23 to allow for the conversion of a barn in the back of this property into a dwelling unit. And in the course of the construction is underway, as often happens in the course of construction, there's been some slight modifications. And in this case, there's a modification that involves the relocation of some windows on a non-conforming wall. In one case, and it's all depicted on sheet SK205, SK05 tells the story rather succinctly, that right there. So you'll see that the above image is the existing condition as it's currently being converted. What the change is to remove one of the windows. You'll see on the bottom, like yes, right there. Those double set of windows become a single set. Removing that window on a non-conforming wall, as board members know, doesn't require any relief. So that's really not the focus of our application. It is in the bottom right-hand corner, there is a window being added in that location. So essentially, it's the same size and dimensions as the window that's coming out. It's just being added in it and further down on the facade. But because it's a non-conforming wall, we need relief. We have the architect present with us, as well as the petitioners. Happy to answer any questions. As I noted, the construction is underway and ongoing, and the change is modest and certainly consistent with the board's findings in the original case in 2023. Found a hardship to support the granting of the variance.
Thank you. Board members, and this is a variance, as you just mentioned. Any questions from members of the board?
If you want to know why it's a variance, it's a trick question.
I was afraid somebody might ask. Please tell us, why is this a variance and not a special permit?
I have to commend the diligence of the BZA staff. So these non-conforming openings are permitted by special permit on 1 and 2 family dwellings. So I thought we could apply for a special permit. But the staff pointed out to me that the structure doesn't become a dwelling until such time as the construction is complete. So that's a very literal ruling, but I said, well, it's kind of a dwelling because it's already been approved as a dwelling and all that. But as always, I defer to the expertise of the staff. So we were advised this could become a special permit if we were to wait for the completion of this construction and have a CO and this structure were to become a dwelling. Then we would come back. So rather than do construction all over again, it was decided that condition was something that the board might find to be a sufficient hardship. So we are here tonight with an unusual case seeking a variance for something that will be eligible for a special permit in a few more months.
Thank you for the explanation.
You mean that?
I do. Thank you. It's going to come up as a question. You're going to have to talk to me about a hardship, and you just did. So we kind of covered it already. Thank you. Any questions from members of the board? If not, there's no correspondence in the file, either for or against. We'll open it up to public comment. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. I'll now ask staff to unmute speakers one at a time. You should begin by saying your name and address, and staff will confirm that we can hear you. After that, you will have up to 3 minutes to speak before I ask you to wrap up. What, 14 people calling in? No one is calling in. I will close public testimony. Any discussion among members of the board? If not, I will move to a motion. Chair makes a motion to grant relief from the requirements of the ordinance under sections 5.31, and that really has to do with the window located in the rear setback. 8.22.3 for a non-conforming structure, and 10.30 for a variance. And Mr. Rafferty kindly described already why we're here in bureaucracy land and why this is a variance and not a special permit for a window. So I think the hardship has been demonstrated there. On the condition that the work proposed conform to the drawings entitled 11 Perry Street, Cambridge, Mass., prepared by Torrey Architecture, dated October 29th, 2024, initialed and dated by the chair, and further that we incorporate the supporting statements in conventional form submitted as part of the application. On a voice vote among the board members, please. Virginia?
Virginia Kiesler in favor.
Thank you. Stephen?
Stephen Ing in favor.
Thank you. Daniel?
Daniel Hidalgo in favor.
Thank you. Thomas?
Thomas Miller in favor.
Thank you. And Jim Monteverdi in favor. That's 5 in favor. Relief is granted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman of the board. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Next case is Oops. We have to wait. I'll come back at 7:45. Sorry. Let's check in on the football game. My wife and I went to Penn State, so we're rooting for Penn State against Notre Dame this evening. They're playing at 7:30. I forget what bowl game it is, but yeah, sorry. Okay, I'm getting no support from staff here, but it is a bowl game. It is a semifinal, so it's for those who are interested, it's a big deal. All right, we'll be back at 7:45. All right, we're back. Next case is BZA 1143807, 216 Banks Street. Is there anyone calling in to discuss this case with us or to present this case to us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board.
Great. Can you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Nathan Wong from NCP Management, representing ownership for this multifamily residence at 216 to 218 Bank Street. I can't see from the Zoom screen, but I believe that I'm joined tonight by our architect, Vince Pan, who leads the design team at Analog Studio. This property was originally built in the late 1890s, and it's been in our control since 2013. During this time, it's served as residence to a host of mostly graduate students and working professionals. But, you know, in the decade plus, given the age of the building and its declining condition, we think that the building is overdue for some improvements that would benefit future residents. Over the past year, we've been working with Vince and his team to work on a set of renovation plans, which are all, I would describe them as modest in nature. So we're in front of the board today to walk through this proposed set of changes. I'm going to turn this over to Vince in just a second, but to underscore just a couple of highlights, we are not looking to make any additions or add any additional GFA. Moreover, our proposal aims to keep the number of units exactly as they stand as it currently sits. Vince, over to you.
So the proposal, as Nathan mentioned, is to renovate this building.
Can you introduce yourself, please, before you begin?
Vince Pan, Analog Studio. We're an architecture firm also based in Cambridge, right on River Street. As Nathan mentioned, we've been working on this for a better part of a year now. This renovation. So what we see here is the proposed and existing site plans for the project. The envelope of the building is remaining unchanged with the exception of 2 dormers that are being added on the 3rd floor. We are also, you may notice, eliminating 1 of 2 entrances on the left side of the building. If you look at the right plan, there's an entrance on both sides. Now there's an entrance only on one side. And changing some access at the back, trying to consolidate the number of entrances. Right now, I think there's 5 separate entrances to this building, and we are consolidating those down to 1 main entrance. But the relief that's being sought here for a special permit is because we are within the setbacks and proposing to add some windows, eliminate a door, make some changes to exterior openings. That's what we're here before the board for today. And as Nathan mentioned, it's a fairly modest renovation. The number of units are staying the same. Their layout is changing slightly, but the whole envelope will be replaced with new siding, windows, doors, that all meet current energy codes, and will be, an asset to the community for years to come. So. We can walk through the floor plans and elevations if that's helpful.
If you can walk us through in either plan or elevation and just point out the proposed modifications that require relief, that would be helpful.
Sure. Yeah, if we can go, let's go ahead to the elevations. I'm not sure who's driving here. Yeah, there we go. So on the right, we see the existing elevation, and on the left, the proposed. So on this side, facing Bank Street, the bay windows and the window up at the top in the gable are all staying basically exactly as they are. There is a door to access the basement unit right now. On this side, we're replacing with a window and adding 1 window down in the basement that you can see on the left there. There's no questions, and you can see the dormer here on the left side that's being added. If we can go to the next elevation. So on this side, there's three windows on the right-hand side of the image of the elevation that are staying the same location, same dimension. That door that I mentioned previously is now a window, so that's being made a little bit smaller opening. Then we're adding some windows both on the sort of front half and the back addition. Windows in the basement are changing locations, but mostly probably around the same net size. And then we have those two dormers up at the top. The dormers have been designed to fall within the guidelines for dormers, and they do fall within the setback. So we're not requesting any relief for those. Those should be as of right. And then if we can keep going, probably around to the back. Here you see we're adding 4 sets of double windows where there are sort of very, very small windows right now. But the pair of windows up top of the gable is the same as it currently is. And the last elevation, similar to the other side. Again, the windows toward the street are staying very similar. The door is staying quite similar. But the two windows sort of next to the right of the door are becoming double windows, and we're adding a few windows in the back from the previous.
Thank you. So if I read the dimensional form correctly in your proposed site plan, it's all of the openings that you're modifying in I'll call it the front 2/3 of the building, since that building sits within all of the setbacks, front, rear, left, and right. Any of those openings are part of the special permit.
That's correct. And I'd say probably 40% of the openings are remaining unchanged. I mean, we're putting new windows, but the size and location, they're staying the same. And then the rest are being tweaked or added or enlarged.
Okay. And then the only other question I have or comment is, I notice on your dimensional form, when you add the two dormers typically add some square footage, but there's nothing listed under the requested condition. In other words, you're not showing that the floor area increases. Is that correct?
That is correct, because the way we've done that is to rebalance the units in the building. So what we previously, if we look at the basement floor plan, this might become a little bit more evident. There was a much larger unit in the basement that we are actually making smaller so that we can make the third floor unit, which is more appealing, gain that little bit of extra square footage, and the basement unit can be a little bit more right size for a basement unit.
Okay.
So,
yep.
Correct, Olivia. You had it at page 8.
Yep.
Or slide 8.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right after this. Yeah.
Understand. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions? If not, there's no correspondence in the file, either for or against, so I'll open it up to members of the public who are calling in. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen that says Raise Hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. I'll now ask staff to unmute speakers one at a time. You should begin by saying your name and address, and staff will confirm that we can hear you. After that, you will have up to 3 minutes to speak before I ask you to wrap up. Anybody calling in? No one calling in, so we will close public testimony. Any discussion among members of the board? If not, I will move to a motion. This is a special permit. The chair makes a motion to grant relief from the requirements of the ordinance under sections 5.31, and that is specifically for the areaway in the front yard setback and the openings, windows, doors, etc., on the facades on the front, rear, left, and right side setbacks that are within the setback. And section 8.22.2.c for non-conforming structure, and section 10.40 for a special permit. And I will read that criteria. It appears that requirements of this ordinance cannot or will not be met. That is correct. Traffic generated or patterns of access or egress would cause congestion, hazard, or substantial change. It will not. The continued operation of or the development of adjacent uses as permitted in this ordinance would be adversely affected. It will not. Nuisance or hazard would be created to the detriment of the health, safety, and/or welfare of the occupant. It will not. And for other reasons, the proposed use would impair the integrity of the district or adjoining district, and it will not. So it complies with the criteria for section 10.43 for a special permit. On the condition that the work proposed conform to the drawings entitled 216-218 Banks Street, prepared by Analog Studios, dated November 18th, 2024, initialed and dated by the chair, and further that we incorporate the supporting statements in dimensional form submitted as part of the application. On a voice vote, please, board members. Virginia?
Virginia Kiesler in favor.
Thank you. Stephen?
Stephen Ing in favor.
Thank you. Daniel?
Daniel Hidalgo in favor.
Thank you. Thomas?
Thomas Miller in favor.
Thank you. Jim Monteverdi in favor. That's 5 in favor. The relief is granted.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We have a 3-minute break. All right, we're back. Next case and last case is BZA 1145038, 177 Hancock Street. Is there anyone calling in to present this one to us?
Yes.
Hello. My name is Kelly Boucher. I'm the project architect for 177 Hancock Street, and my business address is 54 Harvard Street in Brookline, Massachusetts. I'm joined by Bryn Sanders, who is the homeowner tonight as well.
Very good. Can you walk us through what's being modified and what you need relief for?
Sure. Olivia, if you could pull up the presentation. You can go right to the site plan, which is A010. I think is a good place to start. Here's our existing site plan. The building, as you can see, is located in all 4 of its setbacks, front, sides, and rear. It's on an odd-shaped lot that does not meet the size for zoning requirements, and the house is already existing over the allowable GFA and building height. We are proposing to restore the property, and we're not adding any additions or, expanding outside of our existing building envelope. But we are looking to change windows in the setback, including at the basement level, which will create some egress windows for living space down there, but will also affect the building height by reducing the average grade. So from this site plan, you can see those area wells. There's one facing the front, 2 facing the left side, and 1 at the rear. And if you want to, Olivia, if you could switch to the elevation sheets, I can show you the windows that we're looking to change. So existing elevations are shown along the top, proposed along the bottom. So all 4 sides are getting slight window modifications. Our project was reviewed and approved by the Mid-Cambridge Historic Conservation District last month, and we received a certificate of appropriateness. The changes are minor in nature and are pretty consistent with other things that have been at the board this evening. So that's the front elevation on the left, bottom left, proposed right side elevation on the bottom right. And if you could scroll to the next elevation sheet. Great, thank you. So the bottom left side is our proposed rear elevation, and you can see there's a new walkout egress door as well as a window and some new windows for the main house, as well as 2 window wells being changed on the side and the left side elevation. So that is what we are proposing to do. Fairly straightforward, special permit relief for windows occurring in the setback, as well as the change in setback formula because our building height is slightly changed due to the area wells.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from members of the board? If not, I have one, Kelly. And if you go back to if I read the site plan correctly, the left side where you're proposing a light well, egress windows. Yep. Will there be a cover on those of some type?
No, there's not going to be a walking surface on the side of them, and they're not going to be deep enough to require fall protection. Actually, you can see them. They're in that lower right elevation. Yep. Those windows are for light and not for, and they don't need to be really deep for egress. Actually, the front of the basement sticks quite far.
Right. Yeah. My typical concern when it's this tight in the side yard setback is really for someone like a first responder, an emergency, someone trying to get down that side of the house with a fire hose, or if someone is in the back and trying to get to the back of the property and going down that side with something that tight to the property line, I prefer these things to have a cover, whether they need it or not, based on their depth. As anyone walking down this thing in the dead of night is just going to fall into the thing. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, we're happy to consider that. Bryn, we could talk about that after.
Yep. If you would, please, I would appreciate that.
We will, which isn't shown on this as it's not part of our BZA application, but there will be some fencing along there too. And maybe with the fencing, we can make it so that it's not even possible to walk there from front.
That would be worse, in my opinion. Because basically what you have now is the opportunity for, and it's typically preferred for, especially, an emergency responder, firefighter, you've got access to this building on 4 sides. To shut off one of those sides, that's not something I would recommend.
Understood. This neighborhood is quite tight over there. So
yeah, exactly. And wood.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the board? If not, there's one piece of correspondence in the file, and I have a question mark on it because I'm not sure it's relevant to our zoning discussion, but
yeah.
let me just summarize it and then ask staff's opinion. We have a letter from Michael Rodman and Lorraine Banrin at 175 Hancock Street. I'll quote a couple sentences. It says, most of the improvements that are shown here greatly improve this property, which currently looks somewhat run down. Then they say, we do take issue, however, with their planned driveway cut on 185 Hancock Street side of their property. And they address these concerns in the document submitted for MC 7172, which I assume would go to the Mid-Cambridge Conservation Commission, which
yes.
we don't have correspondence from them in our file. Did they make any comments?
They did not make any negative comments about the driveway. We had a lively discussion about the front door and also some fencing. The driveway is actually an as of right is allowed to be there, so we don't need relief from the zoning board to put it in. There's enough room between the right side of the building and our property line to get a conforming parking driveway in there, as well as still meet all of our open space requirements.
Okay, thank you. And as far as the Mid-Cambridge Conservation Commission, so if they didn't state any objections, that's fine. There's usually some typical language that they want you to go back with details, colors, materials, et cetera. Did you get any comment like that?
We have been working with Allison throughout, even between when we had our hearing and when we did our BZA application, there was a few tweaks that were administratively handled. So I don't believe there's any specific language that I can think of in our certificate. We did have a non-binding review from them, just because of our project was not an increase in floor area or to trigger their binding review requirements.
Gotcha. Okay. So that is the one piece of correspondence we have in the file. I will open it up to public comment. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. I'll now ask staff to unmute speakers one at a time. You should begin by saying your name and address, and staff will confirm that we can hear you. After that, you will have up to 3 minutes to speak before I ask you to wrap up.
Michael Rodman.
Michael, you calling in? Are you on mute?
Okay. Now can you hear me?
Yeah, can you introduce yourself, please?
Okay. I'm Michael Rodman. I submitted that letter, me and my wife. And it may be maybe there's a different agenda or a meeting where we should express our objections to this. There will be objections from other community members that we've talked to. So rather than, if you want me to keep speaking about my objections, I will, but if this is for another meeting, I will just attend that meeting. So what would you prefer?
So a curb cut typically doesn't come to the zoning board, and it's a curb cut application that would go, as staff is telling me, to the city council. So
Okay.
I think you do have another audience for this, and it's not this one this evening.
Well, then I will present everything at the,
Yeah, or call into ISD just to confirm that that's correct, and you know what the process would be for you to pursue this.
okay,
All right, thank you.
sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for calling in. Anybody else calling in? No, that's it. I will close public testimony. Any discussion among members of the board?
Can I ask a question? I don't know if it's out of order.
No, go ahead.
I see on the screen that there's your drawings have several dates on them. I want to make sure that we're talking about the drawings that are dated 1/06/25, which is from Monday.
It's the ones that we have in the file.
Perfect. I think there's a few pages before that that are an older date, and maybe it's a very large PDF.
Oh.
See, I think somehow there's two dates in one big file. I want to just make sure, yes, that we're using the January 6th date as effectively they're the same. It's just a stair window change on the innovation sheet.
Everything we have in the file, not what you're seeing on screen, but what's in the file in paper, is the January 6th, 25. So I think we're all set.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Closed public testimony. Any discussion among members of the board?
Yeah, Jim, it's Steve Ing. I agree with you on, I think we should have a condition where those wells are provide some kind of grate or cover, because boy, if your butter puts a fence up or something, you're walking right over that. So I'd like that as a condition in the approval.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can
Kelly,
have
is that something?
a metal grate and in-swing the windows.
Yeah, however you achieve it, but I think if we just mention, if we include a condition that those window wells, I think that's on the left side setback, have a cover, some type of cover so that someone can't fall into it, then if you're okay with that, then we'll invent some type of condition like that, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. Any other discussion among members of the board? If not, I will move to a motion, and this is a special permit. Chair makes a motion to grant relief from the requirements of the ordinance under sections, this is 5.31. 5.31 specifically deals with all of the opening modifications that are being made on the front, rear, left side, and right side, because it's all sitting within the setback. For the height of the building, which really has to do with the new areaways that increases the height. I think that's it for Form 5.31. And sections 8.22.2.d and .c for non-conforming structure, and 10.40 for special permit. And I will read that criteria. It appears the requirements of this ordinance cannot or will not be met. That is correct. traffic generator or patterns of access or regress would cause congestion, hazard, or substantial change. It will not. Continued operation of or the development of adjacent uses as permitted in the ordinance would be adversely affected. It will not. Nuisance or hazard would be created to the detriment of the health, safety, or welfare of the occupant. It will not. And for other reasons, the proposed use would impair the integrity of the district or adjoining district, and it will not. So it complies with meets all of the criteria of section 10.43 for a special permit. Sorry. On the condition that the work proposed conform to the drawings entitled 117 Hancock Street, prepared by Kelly Boucher Architecture, dated January 6, 2025, initialed and dated by the chair, and further that we incorporate the supporting statements and dimensional forms submitted as part of the application, and further the special permit is granted incorporating a cover that would support a person walking across the light wells that are proposed in the left side setback. Board members, on a voice vote, please. Virginia?
Virginia Kiesler in favor.
Thank you. Stephen?
Stephen Ing in favor.
Thank you. Daniel?
Daniel Hidalgo in favor.
Thank you. Thomas?
Thomas Miller in favor.
Thank you. And Jim Monteverdi in favor. Relief is granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
You too.
Have a good night.
Have a good evening. Thank you. Board members, if you can stick around for one more minute. Let me just give you an update on my dormer story. So, sorry, let me just sign this. So, I think the last time I gave you an update, Bill Beam and I had appeared before the city council, or the ordinance committee, which is really the entire council, and presented the petition that we had drafted. And several councilors had a variety of questions, but the ones that stuck were having to deal with the length of the dormers. And there were councilors who preferred that we not limit the length of the dormers and simply require that they be, as the dormer guidelines are now, that they be held back from the edge of the roof by 3'6", I think is the dimension. They directed staff, and that was community development and the legal department, to revise the language of the petition to reflect and give them options on the length of the dormer, either keep the verbiage as we had prepared it or modify it to what some of the councilors were suggesting, which again is the length of the roof minus 3'6" on each end. There was a final presentation to the council. Bill attended remotely, I attended in person, and I was offered the opportunity to speak. When the councilors went to a vote, they voted to accept the modified language that allows the dormer to be the length of the roof minus 3'6" on either end. To my chagrin. So as I understand, that will be, whatever comes out when it gets issued formally, that is what the dormer amendment that we proposed turned into. Personally, I regret it. And if I could have figured out a way to withdraw the petition, I would have, but I didn't. And it got done. So
this is passed by the council, not just out of the ordinance committee. This is passed in the.
This is passed by the council.
Okay.
So it's a done deal.
Wow.
I'm just waiting for us all to get, a copy of the final paperwork to put in our folders to tell us what that change is. But it was under, and I'm guessing here, 8.22.1.d is where we offered our modifications. It was a 1 or 2 family dwelling. And this was to take what the ordinance said now is as long, you could create a dormer if it didn't need any relief for square footage, which is typically impossible. You put a dormer in, you're going to gain some square footage. So what our petition did was remove that and said, no, if you meet the other criteria, and the criteria was the width, and we had no more than, we made it half of the roof length. And the petitioner, the counselors had the opinion that it should be, and they were aware of instances in their neighborhoods where they saw neighbors who had dormers that were a greater length, the entire length of a roof, and they thought those were fine. So they changed it to that.
So the effect will be just much larger dormers than we've been typically.
Yep, as of right, which means we'll never see them. Unless they have some other thing that they need
Right.
relief for, they're not going to come to, but don't be surprised if you see them in a set of drawings and someone tells us they're as of right, because.
Or until residents start complaining about something.
Yeah,
they're-
exactly. Or
Right.
if it's subject to Historic Commission or Neighborhood Conservation Commission. And frankly, I think the city needs a design commission. So it didn't exactly turn out the way we wrote it. But just so you all know, that's where it went.
Did CDD sign off on that, or did they just came from the councilors?
They weren't commenting one way or the other. Their direction was just to write it that way.
I see. Okay.
So it came from the council members who sat on the ordinance committee. Again, my understanding, all the councilors technically sit on the ordinance committee. And then it came up again. That's the way it was discussed during the vote by the council.
Okay.
So regrettably, that's what it's going to be. Unless someone wants to file another petition, but I have a funny feeling the way the councils reacted, it would never get through. So that's where it was. There's a moral to that story. Be careful when you file a petition. Yeah, hoisted on my own petard. That's my favorite Shakespeare quote. All right, that's it. Just want to let everybody know.
Okay. Night.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you all. Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.